It was 8:43 on a Thursday morning when my keycard failed to beep at the elevator. I stood there, blinking at the red light on the scanner, coffee cooling in my hand. By the time security reset my access, I was 8 minutes late, enough for my manager, Kevin, to later act like I'd slept through a shift change. That small delay didn't cause the fallout, but it was the first domino. I work in compliance, specifically third-party review for a mid-tier logistics software company. Our job is to comb through the fine print in contracts, vendor agreements, infrastructure licenses, basically all the boring stuff no one wants to think about until something breaks or someone sues. I'm not a lawyer, but I've spent 10 years learning to read like one. I notice loopholes. I spot contradictions. I save our company a lot of trouble. Or at least, I used to. Until Kevin. Kevin Brooks was the type of manager who said things like circle back and value alignment in daily conversation. Always grinning, always confident, always just tan enough in February that you knew he was sneaking in golf rounds midweek. The guy had a LinkedIn page that read like a startup's about section. Leader, mentor, innovator, problem solver. The truth? He knew just enough to stay in motion and not enough to be useful. He'd been promoted 6 months before this all started, jumped from vendor strategy to oversee our compliance team after the previous director retired. Nobody expected him to have the chops for the work, but he had a reputation for cross-functional coordination, which apparently mattered more than actual knowledge of contracts. He liked me at first. I was clean, fast, and accurate. I didn't complain. I kept my headphones in and my head down. I trained the junior analysts, rewrote templates, caught errors in deals worth millions. I was the guy you called when you wanted to make sure nothing blew up. Then he realized I knew more than him. And that's when the tone changed. The contract in question was labeled TNR Sub 19082, a subcontractor provisioning agreement for one of our freight routing algorithms in the EU. Exciting, right? It was buried in a folder 3 levels deep on our SharePoint. Assigned to Kevin for final review. I had flagged a red clause early on, indemnity exposure to third-party liabilities beyond the agreed cap. Basically, if something went wrong with the subcontractor's tech and they got sued, we might get dragged in. I put it in my review notes and emailed him a breakdown with 3 fix suggestions. He didn't respond. 2 weeks later, the contract was marked as approved and countersigned. By him. I didn't think much of it until 4 weeks later when legal called our team into a meeting room with no snacks and 3 outside counsel on speakerphone. There had been a data issue. One of our subcontractors' modules had misrouted a data packet involving a customer manifest in southern Germany. It triggered a GDPR violation. Fines were pending. There were angry emails from board members. Legal wanted to know why the contract exposed us so directly, why we hadn't closed the indemnity gap. And that's when Kevin did it. He looked at me, shrugged, and said, "Jack signed off on the clause. It was part of his review." I remember the air in that room. It was dry and cold, like the AC was overcorrecting for the tension. I blinked at him. "No, I didn't," I said. "That review was yours." He gave me that grin, the one that didn't reach his eyes. "You sent the recommendations, right? I assumed you followed up." The room fell quiet for a half beat. One of the outside counsel cleared her throat. "Let's regroup after lunch," she said. The call ended. Legal filtered out. HR stayed behind. That afternoon, I scoured the email thread. Everything was there. My flag, my recommendations, his lack of reply. But no acknowledgement on his part. No digital footprint of a decision. And because he had uploaded the signed version, he had edit access to the metadata. I went to our internal systems to pull the timestamp logs. Locked. Kevin had reclassified the folder under his personal project zone. No one else had access. I was boxed out. I went to Emily, our HR rep. She was one of those people who looked like she'd be cast as HR lady in a procedural drama. Always neutral tone, always sipping tea, always speaking just softly enough that you leaned forward. "Emily," I said, sliding into her office, "I need to report something. It's about Kevin. He blamed me for a contract error I didn't sign off on." Her eyes flicked up from her screen. "Okay, sit." I told her everything. She nodded through it, jotted some things down, asked careful questions. When I was done, she said, "We'll look into it." I left her office feeling off, not like I'd been heard, more like I'd filed a noise complaint in a construction zone. The next morning, I got a calendar invite. Subject: check-in. From Kevin Brooks. Time: 10:30 a.m. Location: Conef Orm 3B. I walked in. He was already there. The door was shut. He didn't waste time. "Jack, I saw your visit to HR." His voice was low, smiling but tight. "Yeah," I said. "I had to." He leaned forward. "Look, let's not make this bigger than it is. We're a team, right? Sometimes wires get crossed. I assumed you handled the clause. Maybe you assumed I did. End of the day, it slipped through. But it's better for everyone if we just own it together." I stared at him. "You want me to take joint blame for something I flagged, and you ignored?" He spread his hands. "Jack, come on. Think about optics. If legal thinks you're throwing your manager under the bus, they'll start asking why. That never looks good. We keep this quiet, and it dies down." I stood. "I'm not going to lie to cover for you." He sighed. "Your call, but don't be surprised if this impacts your future alignment with the team." I left. That week was hell. Suddenly, every contract I touched was under further review. The junior I mentored was reassigned for balance. My desk was moved, not across the building, just far enough away from my team to make it weird. Kevin stopped talking to me in meetings. If I spoke, he spoke over. If I emailed, he looped in HR. It was like I had become radioactive. Then came the official write-up. HR framed it as a miscommunication during contract review. A warning, on my record, no mention of Kevin, no reference to the flags I raised, just a vague failure to properly document risk exposure. I appealed. It went nowhere. At home, my wife, Alicia, could see it was wearing on me. "You're grinding your teeth at night again," she said one evening. "That hasn't happened since your last job." I nodded. "I don't know what to do." "You do," she said. "You just don't like it." She was right. Because what I wanted to do, what I knew was right, was to fight this with everything I had. But fighting meant risk. Fighting meant being the guy who got labeled difficult. And in our industry, reputations traveled fast. Still, I couldn't let this slide, because if I did, it wouldn't stop here. Kevin would do it again, to someone else. And worse, he'd know he could. So I opened a folder on my personal drive, named it CYA Kevin, and I started documenting everything, every meeting, every email, every review log I could get before he locked them down. Because this wasn't just about a contract, it was about character. And I was done letting mine get trampled. The folder started with 3 PDFs, a notepad file, and a single voice memo. By the end of the month, it had over 100 items. Every call I was on, I wrote down timestamps. Every Slack message, I exported. I even printed the company's code of ethics, highlighted sections, and added annotations. Not because I planned on suing right away, because I needed clarity, because gaslighting doesn't happen all at once. It's slow erosion, and I needed proof that I wasn't the crazy one. Alicia helped. She's a paralegal, sharp as hell, with a memory that could rival a courtroom transcript. She offered to go over my documentation with me, even when I was reluctant. "This isn't gossip, Jack," she said one night. "This is your livelihood. If they're building a paper trail to make you the scapegoat, you need a better trail." We went through each item, labeling them. Flag raised. No response. Contradictory statement. Kevin. Review transfer. HR deflection. I'm not a dramatic guy. I wasn't out for blood, but watching those patterns emerge, it made me sick. Then came the performance review cycle. The company used these clunky self-evaluation forms through some third-party portal. You filled in your accomplishments, challenges, goals, and your manager rated them. I listed what I'd actually done. Flagged 3 contract risks that prevented exposure totaling $4.2 million. Trained 2 new hires on compliance protocol. Streamlined clause review templates for 17% faster processing. Kevin's feedback? Jack has struggled with team cohesion and accountability, needs improvement in communication and ownership. I stared at the screen. The words felt like vinegar in my mouth, and under improvement areas, he wrote, "Should focus on clarity in documentation to prevent further misunderstandings." I read that twice. Further, he was stacking his narrative. I booked a second meeting with HR. Emily again. I handed her a printed binder with 42 pages. "Everything you need to see is in here," I said. "I'm formally disputing my performance review on the basis of retaliation and managerial misconduct." She didn't take the binder. "Jack, we really prefer digital documentation." "I know. You'll get a drive link too. But I need this on record." She shifted in her chair. "Jack, I want to be clear. We take these allegations seriously, but we also have to protect all employees involved. That includes Kevin. He's not being accused. He's being reported. There's a difference." She looked at me for a long second, like she wasn't used to being spoken to that directly. I didn't flinch. A week passed, then another. I got an email titled, "Follow-up on Performance Dispute, Meeting Invite." It was scheduled for a Friday, 2 p.m., the kiss of death slot. Kevin was already in the room. So was Emily. So was a guy I didn't know. Some HR escalation officer named Rick. They didn't waste time. "Jack," Rick said, "we've reviewed the documents you submitted. Thank you for your thoroughness. There are some concerns we want to address." He flipped a folder around. Inside was a copy of my CYA spreadsheet. My stomach dropped. "How did you—" "We monitor all company laptop activity. This file was located in a synced folder." I'd made a mistake. I'd saved the first draft in my OneDrive work folder before moving it to personal. They'd seen the ghost copy. "Is that a problem?" I asked. Rick didn't answer. Kevin did. "This kind of secret documentation, it suggests a lack of trust. That's toxic to a team." I didn't look at him. I looked at Emily. "You said retaliation wasn't tolerated. So, is this meeting punishment or process?" She didn't answer, but Rick did. "We want to work toward resolution, but continuing in this direction isn't sustainable. For anyone." That night, Alicia saw the way I sat in the car before going inside. "Do we need to talk?" she asked gently. I nodded. She handed me a bottle of water and sat on the porch beside me. "Mistake," I said. "I left a breadcrumb on the work drive. They found the folder. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just waited. They spun it into insubordination. "You're not crazy," she said. "I feel like I'm drowning in dry land." By Monday, my projects had dried up. I was no longer looped on contract review cycles. My access to dashboards was revoked. Kevin said it was a reallocation of priorities to better match company goals. I'd become a liability. That's when I made the call. To him, Jonah Lee. Jonah and I interned together back in 2011. He was now the head of compliance at a competing logistics firm, not direct competitors, but close enough to know our industry. I told him what was happening. All of it. He didn't sound surprised. "You're not the first person to mention Kevin Brooks," Jonah said. "He used to work for us, briefly." My ears perked up. "Wait, he was at Echelon?" "For about 9 months. Let's just say he didn't leave on great terms." My chest tightened. "I'll be honest, Jack," Jonah said. "You need to get out before they build the file against you any further. Once it hits a certain threshold, they can call it behavioral grounds, and you'll be flagged in background checks." "I'm trying to fight." "Then get a lawyer, and download your entire Slack archive while you still can." That night, Alicia and I sat with a spreadsheet and went through our finances. Could we survive if I walked? What was our savings runway? Would Cobra cover her treatments if I lost my insurance? Yeah, that's another thing. Alicia's in remission now, but checkups aren't cheap. We ran the numbers. It'd be tight, but not impossible. "You shouldn't have to go through this just to stay employed," she said. "You're not the one who failed." I nodded, but I didn't sleep. 2 days later, Kevin made his next move. He sent an all-staff email announcing a team-wide restructure in Q4. 3 names were marked for reassignment. Mine wasn't one of them. But neither was I on the org chart. I was missing. I replied to HR. No answer. I pinged Kevin directly. He sent back a smiley face emoji and the words, "Let's chat when you're free." That's when I knew. They weren't firing me. They were erasing me. So I set my own meeting. With someone above Kevin. Lisa Tran, VP of Operations. I'd never spoken to her before. She oversaw 3 divisions and had a reputation for being direct, no nonsense, and loyal to process. I slid the binder across her desk. She didn't touch it. "You've got 10 minutes, she said. I nodded. "Then I won't waste them." And I told her. Every damn thing. When I finished, she was quiet. Then she asked, "You said your wife had cancer." "In remission." She nodded. "I'm sorry." I blinked. "I didn't bring that up for y'all's sympathy." "I know," she said. "That's why I believe you." Then she stood, picked up the binder, and said, "Give me a week." 3 days later, Kevin was on leave. 2 weeks after that, I got a formal apology from HR. They said it was a misunderstanding in the managerial chain of command, and corrective measures were taken. They didn't reinstate my review score, though, didn't clear the write-up, didn't promote me. But they offered me a lateral transfer to another department. Fresh team, clean slate. I took it. Because sometimes justice doesn't look like victory. Sometimes it just looks like not losing. But I wasn't done yet. Because Kevin wasn't just on leave. He was prepping for a comeback. And what I found next, it changed everything. The first time I saw Kevin's name again was on a LinkedIn notification. Kevin Brooks started a new position, Senior Compliance Consultant, Global Affairs Division. My thumb hovered over the screen. The company name underneath made my stomach knot. Carson Solutions. Carson was a vendor our company had been eyeing for a possible integration deal, Nothing confirmed, but it had come up in our strategy syncs. The optics of Kevin landing there weren't just irritating, they were suspicious. I clicked through to his profile. Same grinning headshot, same vague buzzwords, except now, under experience, he had listed his time with us as Director of Compliance Strategy and padded every bullet with achievements that didn't belong to him. I was too stunned to be angry. Then I noticed the timing. His new job had started 3 days before his leave of absence. I printed the page, tucked it into my CYA folder, and opened an old tab I hadn't touched since this all began. The Internal Compliance Risk Index dashboard. I no longer had access, but I knew who did. Monica. Monica was a senior analyst in the data risk arm, part of the broader compliance umbrella. We'd worked together on a few vendor reviews. She was smart, discreet, and allergic to corporate BS. I messaged her. Hey, random question. Do we still have Carson Solutions flagged under moderate risk from the last audit? She responded 2 minutes later. Not anymore. They were downgraded to low risk 2 weeks ago. Why? I stared at the message. Can we talk? We met in a coffee shop a block from HQ. Neutral ground. I showed her Kevin's new title and the timing of the downgrade. She whistled under her breath. Shady, she said, but not illegal. Technically. What about ethics? We still do those, right? She stirred her tea. Depends on who's asking. I told her what I suspected, that Kevin had manipulated our internal documentation before leaving, possibly to set the stage for a future deal between our company and Carson. He needed them to look safer on paper. And the fact that he was now working there? Too convenient. She looked down at her phone, then back at me. Jack, there's something you should see. Back in the office, Monica invited me to her desk and pulled up an internal file access log, one I technically wasn't authorized to view anymore, but she still had permissions. She clicked through until she found a flagged access event dated 2 weeks before Kevin's departure. User, Brooks. File. Vendor Risk Assessment, Carson Solutions, v2.0. Action. Edited. Timestamp, 03:42 p.m. She clicked a drop-down. Change. Log. Modified. Historical risk incidents from 3 to 1. Removed. Pending litigation note. Updated. Data security concerns to resolved. No documentation. No justification. Just clean edits that made the company look better. I swallowed hard. And nobody caught that? Wasika gave me a look. Most people don't even know these logs exist. I thanked her, bought her coffee for the next week. Then I called Jonah again. He picked up on the second ring. I was hoping you'd call, he said. Why? Because Carson's name just popped up in a vendor negotiation with us, and I thought, isn't that where Kevin went? Jonah, I said, voice flat. He's doing it again. I explained everything. Jonah didn't sound surprised, but he sounded pissed. I'll escalate it internally, he said, but you need to go external. You mean legal? He paused. No, he said. I mean the whistleblower line. I'd never used our company's ethics hotline before. It was supposed to be confidential, independent, and protected under corporate policy. But I'd also heard stories, how reports mysteriously went nowhere, how names accidentally leaked, how careers quietly stalled. Still, I had my documentation. I had a motive trail. I had a timeline. And I had a damn good reason. It took me 2 hours to write the full report. I submitted it through the encrypted portal, attached redacted versions of my logs, and left the optional contact field blank. Anonymous. For now. Then I waited. 2 weeks passed. Nothing. Then I got an email. Subject: Request for clarification. Regarding ethics concern from Internal Ethics Review. Panel. Body: We are investigating a recently submitted report and would like to schedule a conversation for clarification purposes. Your confidentiality will be maintained. I agreed. The call was set for Monday morning. They used a disguised number, disguised names, and even disguised roles. But I recognized Lisa Tran's voice the moment she said, "Thank you for your time." The questions were detailed. How I knew what I knew, when I knew it, who else had access. I answered everything carefully. They thanked me again, said the review process could take up to 6 weeks, and ended the call. 6 weeks felt like a lifetime, but it only took 10 days. Lisa called me directly. Her voice was steady, professional, but not cold. "Jack, I can't say much for confidentiality reasons, but I wanted you to know that your information was critical to a broader review. Is Kevin being investigated?" A pause. "I can't comment on personnel matters, but I can tell you that our company will not be moving forward with any Carson Solutions integration." I exhaled. Then she added, "You did the right thing, even when it wasn't easy." That stuck with me more than I expected. Weeks passed. My new team warmed up to me. I wasn't the ghost in the corner anymore. I was Jack. The guy who quietly fixed processes, who remembered interns' names, who stayed late to help untangle a non-compete clause from a French vendor agreement. Life got quieter. Until one Thursday morning, I got a message from Monica. "You've got to see this." She linked a news article. Former compliance director Kevin Brooks resigns amid internal investigation. The write-up was vague. Cited discrepancies in documentation during his previous tenure and ongoing cooperation with third-party review entities. It didn't mention me. Didn't have to. I felt the breath come back to my lungs for the first time in months. That night, Alicia and I celebrated with takeout and bad TV. She curled up beside me on the couch, sipped her wine, and said, "So, what now?" I didn't answer right away, because something had shifted inside me. This wasn't just a personal victory. It was something deeper. I'd stood up. I'd drawn a line. And I realized I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was ready to build something better. But Kevin's story wasn't done, and neither was mine, because a week later I got a certified letter in the mail, and what was inside changed everything. The envelope was matte, thick stock, and came from a law firm I didn't recognize. Bright and Alder, LLP. The kind of place whose name sounded expensive. The kind of letter you don't open standing up. Alicia watched from across the kitchen island as I slid a butter knife under the seal. "You okay?" she asked. "I don't know yet." Inside, 4 pages, dense legal formatting, and then the kicker. Kevin Brooks versus Jack Harding. Notice of intent to pursue civil action. I read it twice before saying anything. Kevin was alleging defamation. Specifically, that I had intentionally and maliciously spread false information about his performance and character, resulting in reputational and economic damages. The letter demanded a formal retraction of all defamatory claims made to third parties, a public statement of correction, and a threat of filing suit if I didn't comply within 10 business days. Alicia took the pages and read them silently. When she was done, she looked up and said what I'd been too stunned to say myself. "He's trying to scare you into silence." I nodded. "He's pissed he lost the Carson deal." "He's not suing," she said. He's hoping the threat makes you back off. Should I? Her jaw tightened. Only if you want this to keep happening. To someone else. Somewhere else. The next day, I called Jonah again. This time, I didn't mince words. He sent me a threat letter, civil suit, defamation. Jonah didn't even sound surprised. That's Kevin's style. He tried the same thing on someone here after he got booted from Echelon. What happened? HR settled, paid the guy off just to shut him up. But the difference here is, you've got a record. Yeah, I said. I do. I'll send you the name of a lawyer. She's not cheap, but she's surgical. Her name was Amina Farouk, Harvard Law. Former in-house counsel for 2 Fortune 100 companies, now ran her own boutique firm specializing in retaliation, ethics violations, and, defamation countersuits. I sent her everything. She reviewed my documents, timelines, internal Slack logs, the CYA folder, and the ethics line call transcript I'd requested under our state's open record statute. Her verdict? He's bluffing, but that doesn't mean you do nothing. She helped me draft a formal response through her firm. It was professional, calm, and laced with quiet threat. We welcomed any suit discovery process. We retained documentation with time-stamped metadata. We had internal access logs and compliance discrepancies tied directly to Kevin's account. We had multiple witnesses, and if he pushed forward, we reserved the right to pursue a counterclaim for retaliation and reputational harm. Then she attached a line I would have paid to see his reaction to. This correspondence serves as notice that any future interference with Mr. Harding's employment, character, or reputation will be documented and litigated to the fullest extent of the law. We sent it, and waited. 4 days later, Amina got a call from Bright and Alder. They'd reviewed the situation and were re-evaluating next steps. Translation: Kevin backed off. She smiled as she hung up. That's that. Except it wasn't, because when someone like Kevin loses control, they don't just slink away, they scheme. 2 weeks after the letter drama died down, I got a message from Monica. Hey, did you approve a Q4 vendor flag reversal? I replied instantly, no. Why? Your name's on it. She sent a screenshot. It was from our vendor risk system, a document titled Q4 Vendor Downgrade, authored by J. Harding. Except I hadn't written it, and the document contained soft language recommending a downgrade of a controversial analytics vendor, one that Kevin had previously lobbied for during his last month at the company. The kicker? The file had a backdated timestamp and had been recently re-uploaded into the old archive folders I'd lost access to months ago. I met with Lisa Tran the next morning. This time, I walked in without an appointment. She saw my face and waved me in without a word. I laid the printout on her desk. I didn't write this, I said. Someone is trying to forge a paper trail under my name. Lisa didn't blink. You think Kevin's behind it? I know he is. She stared at the page, then tapped the intercom on her desk. Get it and internal audit in here, right now. What followed was 3 days of internal hell. Every system I'd ever touched was audited. They compared timestamps, metadata, user logins, even session IPs. The file was indeed created under a user profile named J. Harding Temp, but the account hadn't been active for months. It had been manually reactivated, then disabled again after the upload. The session IP traced back to an external address, outside the company. Amina filed a formal legal complaint with that evidence. The company issued a private apology, and Lisa personally called the CEO of Carson Solutions. Whatever deal Kevin had been trying to revive there, it died on the spot. After the dust settled, Lisa called me into her office. "You ever considered moving up?" she asked. I blinked. "You mean, there's a senior compliance manager role opening in 3 months. I think you'd be a natural fit." I didn't answer right away. I thought of Alicia, of the nights she stayed up reading draft emails with me, of Monica and Jonah, of the junior analysts I used to mentor, of the day I walked into that elevator with a cooling coffee cup and watched my badge blink red. And I realized something. I didn't just want to survive in this system. I wanted to change it. 3 months later, I started in the new role. New team, new office, same building, but everything felt different now. People greeted me in the hallway again. Someone left a thank you card on my desk after I quietly helped resolve a misfiled NDA. And for the first time in years, I slept through the night. Kevin? He disappeared from LinkedIn. I heard through the grapevine he tried consulting overseas. But last I checked, his name was attached to nothing credible. Turns out, reputation catches up eventually, especially when you try to burn bridges that were never yours to walk on in the first place. But even now, with my new title and fresh start, there's one last thing that happened, and I haven't told anyone yet. Not Alicia, not Jonah, not even Amina, because it came in an envelope, slid under my office door. And it wasn't from Kevin. This story isn't finished yet. Continuing in the next part. You said, continue. ChatGPT said, Part 5. My manager forced me to take blame for a mistake he made. It was a plain white envelope. No postage, no return address. Just my name printed on the front in blocky, slightly uneven handwriting, like someone had been writing with gloves on, or shaking. I found it on a Thursday morning, wedged under my office door. At first I thought it was a thank you note. A junior analyst had passed their audit the day before, and I'd helped proof their materials. That kind of thing happened sometimes now. I was finally in a place where people said thank you again. But when I flipped the envelope open and pulled out the contents, it wasn't a note. It was a photo, a grainy printout of a Slack exchange, one I didn't recognize. 2 users. Harding. We just need the risk language adjusted before it hits Lisa's desk. You cool with that? Echo Brooks. Got it. No worries. You'll be covered. I stared at it, heart thudding, because I never wrote that. It was doctored, sloppy even, wrong timestamp format, incorrect font weight, and a fake username format. Our internal handles didn't include @, but to someone outside our systems, it could look legitimate. Dangerous enough that, in the wrong hands, it could be spun as collusion, as if Kevin and I had worked together to hide contract risk. At the bottom of the printout, written in Sharpie, "Keep your mouth shut." I locked the door, sat down, and for the first time in months, felt that cold, crawling sensation in my spine again. Someone had gone through trouble to fake this, printed it, delivered it inside the building. This wasn't an email or a DM, this was physical intimidation, and it wasn't Kevin's style. Not quite. He bluffed, manipulated, weaponized HR policies and social proof. This was personal. I called Amina, told her everything. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "Jack, this is escalation. Whoever sent this is panicking." Should I go to legal? No, not yet. Let's track the source first. Give me 48 hours. She had contacts in digital forensics, people who specialized in metadata recovery, even from printed materials. She arranged for a courier to pick up the photo. We scanned and bagged it. I didn't tell anyone at work. Not Lisa, not Monica, not even Alicia. I didn't want them looped in until I had more than a hunch and a vague threat. But by the end of that weekend, I had a name. His name was Trevor Sims, a mid-level IT contractor who had floated between departments during the Kevin era. One of those ghost employees no one really noticed, always behind the scenes, resetting passwords, patching log files, plugging USBs into the back of tower units like a technician in a spy movie. Amina's contact traced the printer ID code on the paper to a shared print queue from the basement level, rarely used, but logged by timestamp. Only 3 users had printed anything in that window. 2 were security staff. The third, Trevor. I checked our internal directory. He was still listed, still under an active contract, still had building access, and he'd been working nights, which explained how he got to my office. That Monday, I finally told Lisa. She listened without interrupting, read the printout, and said 2 words, "Let's move." Within the hour, security had Trevor in a conference room. Legal sat in. So did HR. He denied everything, of course. Claimed it was a joke. A test. Said he'd found the file online, printed it as a warning in case I'd been hacked. Said he thought he was doing me a favor. But the logs told a different story. He'd edited a Slack HTML file on his personal laptop using rudimentary code injection, re-uploaded it through a tethered mobile hotspot, and printed it from an unmonitored device. He was fired. On the spot. But it wasn't just about Trevor. It was about what came next. Lisa and legal launched a full-scale audit, one that swept through old logs, dormant accounts, legacy files. What they found was deeper than anyone expected. Trevor had been helping Kevin for months, cleaning metadata, purging revision histories, uploading final versions of contracts Kevin didn't want reviewed. In exchange, cash, untraceable, according to Kevin, but not to Amina. She subpoenaed payment records, found 6 wire transfers from a shell account tied to a Delaware-registered LLC. Guess who was listed as the formation agent? Kevin Brooks. The moment that link was verified, everything changed. Carson Solutions filed an internal inquiry. Their ethics board suspended Kevin's consulting retainer and issued a cease and desist for further representation of their name. Our company filed a formal breach of trust complaint. Kevin's LinkedIn disappeared. Again. And I got called into Lisa's office one more time. She slid a small blue folder across the table. Inside was a single-page letter. "We'd like to nominate you for the Cross-Departmental Integrity Award." It wasn't the kind of thing that made headlines. No stock options, no bonus, just a plaque, an email announcement, a company-wide shout-out during the next all hands. But when I stood in that room, full of analysts, executives, interns, admins, and heard Lisa say, "Some people keep the wheels turning, some people keep the lights on, but the people we need most, they keep us honest." I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. I didn't get Kevin fired. I didn't destroy his life. I just stood up when it counted, documented what was real, pushed back when it would have been easier to duck. And in doing so, I learned something. Silence is the easiest path to survival. But truth? Truth is what builds the road out. I went home that night, sat with Alicia on our back porch, and told her the full story. She didn't cry. She didn't cheer. She just leaned her head on my shoulder and said, "You did it, Jack." I don't know where Kevin is now, and I don't care, because this isn't his story anymore. It's mine, and I'm finally the one writing it. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.